Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
And what is going on, everyone? It is Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you are tuned in for another edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative editor-in-chief. To my left, you're right at home. It is in his contract. He has to do his own intro.
I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the comic book interview with more questions than answers. I am coming at you live and direct straight from the ODPH studios. My name's Off the Cuff Tom, Nerd Initiative's pop culture connoisseur. Ken, I think I went a little too long, but let's get dangerous.
Indeed, because we have a fantastic book to go discuss, which is going to be hitting the shelves on February 12th. The FOC is this Monday coming up, January 20th, coming from Dynamite Comics. And it is one that if you are an old school Disney fan, you know this character very well. If you grew up on the cartoons, this is going to be one that's going to definitely take you back. And we are very fortunate to have the writer of this book on the show. You know his work from such books as Spider-Man, Black Panther, Deadpool, Harley Quinn, and the old school Valiant fan of me marked out because Quantum and Woody is one of my old school favorite books. Daniel KIBBLESMITH is joining us on the show. Daniel, what is going on?
Hi, thanks for having me. I love the intro. That is so in the spirit of what we're doing here, getting off on the right starts.
Yes.
I think I see do I see a Duckburg University shirt as well? Yeah, there we go. There we go. Of course, my brain is in Saint Canard right now. Different Duck City, but there's quite a bit of crossover, as I'm sure the audience knows already.
Yes, just over the bridge.
Yes, absolutely. So let us get into this because, like we touched upon, the book is going to be coming out on February 12th. The FOC is this Monday. How did this all come to be with you and Dynamite and Darkwing Duck?
I mean, obviously, I'm a huge fan of the character. I am of the age that when the Disney Afternoon and Darkwing Duck in particular dropped, it just became my entire life for a little while, like one of my first like proper fandoms. So when I was, of course, aware that there were Darkwing Duck comics being made over the years, and I'd read a lot of them, and now having gotten this gig, I've read, I think, close to all of them. But I had never been involved and didn't know how to approach. So finally, I think it was when I saw the announcement for the Negaduck comic scripted by Jeff Parker. I sent a message. I slid into the DMs. I sent a message to our editor, Nate Cosby, and I said, hey, I don't know if you're doing more of these, if you have a one shot or something you're looking to plug a writer into, but I would love to do anything pertaining to Darkwing Duck. And Nate replied something along the lines of like, I don't have a one shot, but how would you like to just do a series? How would you like to do an ongoing,
Let's just hand this to you.
Yeah. So I obviously said, yes, that is acceptable to me. I can imagine such a thing.
Now you hit it perfectly, and this is exactly how I worded the question. Being of the prime Disney Afternoon demographic, did you have any trepidations taking on this IP?
Oh God, no, not at all. I mean, this is in my bones, like I pursued this. I want to live up to it. I'm doing everything I can in terms of, research, rewatching. Like I said, I read almost all of the comics, which is not easy. I had to get a lot of them through interlibrary loan, just stuff that's not in print anymore. Fantagraphics is putting out those great chunky hardcovers of Disney Afternoon comics. So I've got those also from my local library. And obviously have seen every episode of the show, many of them more than once, but started rewatching from the beginning as soon as I knew that this was happening. So no trepidation, just a lot of feelings of being very honored to get to shepherd these characters in this new series.
No, that's amazing. And especially jumping into a series like this, we see that now a lot of the cartoon characters that we grew up on and for our, and that demographic is now coming back into print. Like, what do you think is the big draw to seeing them now make that transition to the comic form in such a way. Like we're seeing Space Ghost coming out from Dynamite and obviously a bunch of the other Disney properties as well.
I mean, a lot of those characters, I think, just, Space Ghost and Darkwing Duck are both superheroes. They're superheroes that, originated in animation, but they are both superheroes. And that's the dominant genre in, comic books, or at least like American comic books. So I think that those are very intuitive, pairings. And, there have always been cartoon tie-in comics, going back to like my dad's old collection of like Dell and Gold Key, you get like Tom and Jerry and Star Trek and stuff like that. So I think a lot of it is just like people my age are starting to become more prominent in the industry and in the the demographic of sort of like the Wednesday purchasers, where I think that people who grew up with Darkwing Duck and similar stuff are buying comics for themselves and also starting to share comics with their own kids. I'm also a parent of a 3-year-old. I did a Powerpuff Girls comic for Dynamite last year that she actually enjoyed, which was huge for me.
Yeah.
So I do think it's just timing. It's just the sort of cycles of like, hey, we haven't heard from this guy in a little while. We love this character. We love this voice. We got a taste of it in animation not too long ago on the DuckTales show.
This dude is like literally killing all of my questions. I got like 16 questions. It's like pinging on every
We'll
single
go back.
one.
We'll go back. We'll go
All
back.
right.
But yeah, my point is, I think it's just the time is right. I think that these things kind of come back around when they're ready.
Yeah, I mean, and they're always timeless too, like I say, because especially with Darkwing Duck being a superhero, like you touched upon too, like they say, the themes have always resonated, and I mean, they never get out of style. So it just depends on how the creators want to present them to the audience. Like that's the big selling point, at least for as I take it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I don't think it's substantially different than doing like Spider-Man or Batman, because those are also sort of transmedia perennial sort of figures who do exist in cartoons and in movies, and you can tell different kinds of stories in different mediums with them. So I know that IP comics are sort of their own category, but like Marvel and DC are fully IP comics now. There's a whole world of multimedia out there. So I'm really hoping that superhero fans will also pick this up, because 1, it's Darkwing Duck. 2, he's a superhero.
Yeah.
Now, aside from that, he's also Disney. He's Disney Afternoon. Is there a Bible or anything floating around at the Dynamite, headquarters of, hey, this is as far as we can take a Disney Afternoon series, or hey, you can't cross this line, or you can mention a gummy bear, or so on and so forth? Like, is there what's the Bible? Like, how far are you willing to take this? Are you trying to tread your own path, or just stay in line with everything else that's already come?
Right. I mean, it's weird because it sounds like they should be the opposite of each other, but it really is both. There's no, I haven't been handed like a document saying like you can do this, you can't do this. I think that it's more about intuiting. We all love these characters so much, and their voices ring so clear in our heads. And I think everybody's on the same page about what is and isn't Darkwing Duck. Nobody's trying to like make it edgier than the show. We're trying to make it feel exactly like the show. So far, I haven't really come up against anything where they're like, you can't do this. I was very aware of that possibility because it's Disney and it's a giant company, and these comics are all ages comics. But so far, everybody's just really been in sync. I haven't, delivered anything where they said we absolutely cannot do this. Can you make it more G-rated or anything like that? It just every script I write is an attempt to feel exactly like a lost episode of the show. And so far, everybody has seen it the same way. Just smooth sailing.
That's not good.
No,
Yeah.
I was going to say that's amazing, because especially when you deal with Disney and taking one of their characters and really trying to go and not say do like creator own, so to speak, but like to have that creative freedom to really take your character and really go in some different directions that maybe would be a new take to go into from what we know in the series, especially like, for when you went to prep for this series, did you do a lot of rewatch, or did you want to go like right into just, I want to take this character as I remember him the last time I saw him, and just go.
I mean, I've seen the show as an adult. Like I've seen it in the intervening time. So I obviously wanted to do a rewatch and did, but the character in my head was not different than the one on the screen. I think that I had really just kind of he's always there. I watched so much of it as a kid and revisited it periodically. So there wasn't really like a process of reconnecting. And given that I love the character so much, there also wasn't really any ambition on my part to do like my own unique take or my own spin or something. Like I'm just writing the Darkwing Duck comic that I, as a fan, would want to read. Trying to get it to sound as much like the voice of the show as possible. Classic villains, episodic stories, lightly serialized because he's sort of writing his autobiography during this time and auditioning for who he hopes will be his archenemy. But really, just trying to structure it as much like half-hour episodic animated television as I possibly could. My goal is that reading one of these feels like, hey, this could have been an episode of the show when I was a kid.
That's fantastic. Now, playing in the Disney, sandbox, and especially in Saint Bernard, what are some villains that you absolutely, when you found out that you got this, that you absolutely wanted to bring in, and maybe even some more obscure duck characters, whether it's in Saint Bernard or Tailspin or whatever other Disney afternoon, did you want to make sure you made a nod to that you can tell us?
Right. That I can tell us is the big part. Here's what I'll say. Everybody's going to be very satisfied. You flashed the cover a little while ago. The first issue is Darkwing Duck versus Megavolt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what we're trying to signal with that is that this is back to basics. I mean, there've been Darkwing Duck comics fairly recently, but this is a new #1. It's going to be a jumping on point for a lot of people. And I think before it becomes like a reference fest, or like an opportunity for crossovers or anything like that. I do think you just have to kind of set the table, and hopefully people buy it. The longer that we're able to do it, the bigger this world can become. But I really am approaching it like you've either never seen Darkwing Duck before, you're a kid and you want to know what Darkwing Duck is all about, or you're maybe that kid's dad like me, and you remember Darkwing Duck from when you're a kid. You come in, buy the comic to read together, and it's exactly where you left off. It feels right. So back to basics, not overcomplicating things yet. But yeah, classic villains. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, classic villains. I'm trying to do, one villain per issue or one villain team up per issue. So we can see some things that we've never seen before. There will still be surprises, hopefully, that people enjoy. But I do feel a great pressure to deliver, on what it says on the cover. Darkwing Duck #1.
Yeah, because I mean that is a big honor too, and especially trying to separate the Bruce Wayne from the Batman, if you will, and Drake Mallard from Darkwing, because I mean both of them are very unique, and they try a lot. They have hearts of gold, but sometimes they're not exactly A-list on the landing, so to speak. Like, how do you get for differentiating them between for the audience, I should say?
I mean, I've said this before on other interviews too. I don't really see the Darkwing Batman comparison as clearly as some people do. To my mind, Darkwing is really more of like a pulp hero pastiche, the same way Batman is a pulp hero pastiche. So less that Darkwing is like a parody of Batman, but more that they're like both drawing from the same sort of stuff that was coming out, around the time of Batman, around the like early to mid 30s. So one thing I'm kind of trying to do is not Batman, because I know that especially in the comics, especially in the Darkwing comics, that's been done quite a lot to great effect. But like some of it's also inevitable, like a lot of those tropes just belong to all of those characters.
Right.
And there's the opening sequence of our first issue is online if you want to find it. and it is a little Batman-y. I will fully admit. But I also I just want to let Darkwing kind of be his own guy. And to answer your question, I think Drake Mallard is like wildly different from Bruce Wayne. He's this single suburban dad in a sweater vest. So for me, differentiating the two, I don't know that there's a lot of distance between them. I do kind of land on the side of like, Darkwing is the real guy. Drake Mallard is sort of the performance. That classic like comic book trope of like the secret identity is actually upside down. Because Goslin hangs out with Darkwing. Like Darkwing's still her dad when he's dressed like Darkwing.
Yeah.
I think he just has to like keep up appearances in the suburbs and not get caught by the Muddlefoots. And he seems stressed out to me when he's pretending to be Drake. I think he's much more comfortable in the mask.
That's the interesting thing. Honker, Gosling's best friend from the Muddlefoots, makes sure that when Darkwing is dressed up as Darkwing, he always calls him Sir, but when he's Drake, he's always Mr. Mallard. That's something I noticed straight out years ago. One interesting thing is, with everything going on, and you alluded to the whole idea of, Batman-esque type thing. One thing we've never gotten, and I'm just going to throw this out here as either as a question or an idea. Can we figure out who bankrolls DW? I mean, I've heard of Hush Money, but I don't think that counts in Disney.
That is a great question. I haven't addressed it yet. It might be more fun to keep it a mystery. And I should say that anything that we read in this series, because it's from the point of view of Darkwing Duck writing his own autobiography, it's going to be exaggerated. I could lay out some lore, I could lay out some canon, but that doesn't mean that, Darkwing, the narrator, is telling us the truth, because he, legend in his own mind, right? Like if you go back and watch the show, there's a bunch of origin stories, there's a bunch of flashbacks. They all kind of contradict each other. So I think the fun of this is that, there's not a lot of like hard canon. It's more just like, who is this guy? Like, what is his attitude? What is his point of view? How does he see himself? And he's making it happen somehow.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the one fun thing about this is just you can go definitely some different directions with this too, and especially the widespread group of characters there too. And I have to throw up the quote here from Just Nick. He's like, "If there's no Launchpad McQuack, we riot." I'm sure he's going to be in there. Is there any other characters that you really are like chomping at the bit to add to this series?
Well, we already saw Megavolt, so I'll say that Megavolt's my favorite. Megavolt's my favorite villain. I've talked so much about the Rogues Gallery of Darkwing Duck. I would put them up with like any Rogues Gallery in comics in terms of just like iconic characters, designs, color palettes, silhouettes, power sets, whatever. Like one of the best rosters of villains in all of the superhero genre. Megavolt's my number one. Liquidator is probably the one yeah.
I always like that voice. Hello.
I'm getting a lot of Liquidator love as we go forward. So I don't think you'll be surprised who you see when the covers start rolling out. I think it's going to feel like, yes, of course it would be these villains, perhaps even it would be in this order, because honestly, I'm just in bucket list territory at this point. I am checking boxes that I want to see.
That's awesome. But that's like the best part of doing a character that you grow up with, and you now are in the sandbox and you can just build as much as you want and to get that kind of, free reign to do it. I mean, that's just gotta be so incredible.
Yeah, no, I mean, so far so good. I'll do, we'll do 1,000 of them if people keep buying it.
Now, talking about all the wonderful characters and, LP and Honker and Gosling and, I want some Gizmo Duck, but just saying, is there any particular character in this franchise aside from Darkwing that you can relate to?
Oh, a character that I can relate to besides Darkwing. That's great. I love Bushroot. He's sort of like the most soft-hearted of all of the villains. He's was just like a scientist who was bullied by these like two like big burly scientists, which like to my knowledge is not a thing. there are scientists who are bullied by like big like jock scientists who are also scientists. It's a really interesting twist on that trope. But for the most part, he's a good guy. He's usually just trying to like do his own thing, not necessarily, causing destruction for the sake of it, like some of the other villains. But then like absolutely, gets folded into the villain team ups, like absolutely as part of the classic Rogues Gallery roster. So I relate to Bushroot as a guy who's trying to do the right thing in a world that doesn't always tolerate outcasts, or he makes a lot of mistakes, which I think we can all relate to.
Yeah, and absolutely with the Rogues Gallery too. Darkwing has to have a good arsenal with him. We know the gas cans are a big thing. Are we going to see new gadgets come about throughout the series? Anyone that you're particularly fond of to see the audience reaction of?
I'm trying to think if I've introduced anything new. I mean, that's kind of the same answer. Is like I'm not really introducing anything new. I'm just like I've never gotten to write a comic with the gas gun in it before, So before we can start putting twists on things, it's just another like that's what he has. He has the gas gun. He has the rat catcher, he has the plane and the little plane, the drone that kind of scopes things out. So I think it's more just about like playing with the toys, that we have already, and finding twists on stuff that's been there the whole time before reinventing the wheel. But again, I don't know how long we're going to be able to run this. So yeah, eventually we're going to need, more stuff. We're going to start making the world bigger, expanding, not the canon, but, the canon as Darkwing sees it.
Right.
Now, another cool thing is you said that you're just doing this as a continuation. So we're figuring that this is going to be episode 92 and on in flashbacks because he's writing his autobiography. Has there been anything that you really just want to, like, how many arcs have you already planned out?
Well, so what I'll say is it's not like picking up exactly where the series left off. It's not like one of those things where, like Firefly gets canceled and then like Firefly season 2 comes out as its own comic. Mm-hmm. Our approach is way more like the Untold Tales of Spider-Man, where this is early Darkwing adventures that could kind of slot in to the stuff that we've seen before. So really, I mean, we're working really hard to kind of like defy the idea of a chronological canon. We're just sort of making more Darkwing and expanding it in the middle. So I'm so sorry. What was the second part of your question?
Sorry, I was just enthralled with the whole idea.
Oh no, I'm glad.
Again, is it just going to be a continuation? How many arcs have you already considered? And hopefully, keep continuing and getting picked up.
That's right.
Well, you said that it's going to be semi-episodic, and at the same time, you're serialized. So how far out have you, considered?
So I think that the serialized aspect of this can get, it's like an accordion. It can get as big as it needs to if this works, if people like it and we're able to do more, because it's really just about Darkwing writing his autobiography, looking for the supervillain that will define his career to become his archenemy, and in the meantime, just fully episodic early stories. So one of the things that I, when I read the previous Darkwing Duck comics, was I saw like, oh, these are structured like comics, right? Like these are like arcs with chapters that come out monthly, and then the paperback is the entire arc. It's a lot like a Marvel or a DC superhero book. With this, I'm not doing that. That's been done apparently. So I'm just making every issue is like an episode of the TV show. It's a beginning, it's a middle, it's an end, it's a new classic villain, or team up between classic villains we've never seen working before. If you miss issue 3, you can just buy issue 4, because there's nothing important in issue 3 to explain what's happening in issue 4. We're starting from the beginning again. It's just another cool story. Borrow issue 3 from a friend or get it digitally. But yeah, every issue of this is just like me trying to do a complete serving of Darkwing Duck. I just want these to feel like lost episodes. Because the serialized thing, that is part of comics has been done already, like to great effect. So it freed me up to try this other approach.
No, I mean, and especially to try doing that approach too, because I say we see so much of a shift to try doing everything in trade paperbacks, to do one issue standalones. That's really taken it back, because it really allows new readers to jump in, and especially bringing a character back that we all know from the Disney afternoon block from animation, and then now to see where it is. I think that is just so excellent for new readers to go in, because you don't have to sit there and try catching up on years of animation. You can just literally start fresh and hit the ground running. And especially in this market, I think that's such a unique thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I also work in television animation, and those are mostly adult shows, and they have A story, B story, C story, beginning, middle, and end, and there's maybe light serialization in the series, but that's very much how I was approaching it. When I was a kid, Darkwing Duck was just on. You couldn't watch the old ones if you missed one. So I'm writing a comic that hopefully feels the same way, that you can just pick up whichever one is out. And I think especially for kids, I think that's so useful and satisfying. Even though the ultra dense continuity in like X-Men and the Clone Saga is what got me into comics, I think that as compelling as that is, I think it's also equally satisfying to just bring your kid to the comic book store and be like, that is a whole story. There's a whole story who will teach you who this character is. You will get to know him. You'll understand his entire world. You'll meet one of his classic villains, and then if you like it, there's going to be another one next month.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the best thing to do too, especially getting new readers into the shops, and especially bringing these classic themes in, because I mean, there's so much variety at the comic shops now to really bring something classic, and yet it's modern. It's not like something that feels dated reading, but it's those timeless themes that really hook readers in and really grow the audience. Then we start seeing the transition to live action and such. Like, this is where it all starts with, and I just think that concept is so good.
Yeah, I mean, I got in through Saturday morning cartoons and video games. Like, I didn't know that I was going to like comics. It just sort of gradually happened to me.
Yeah.
Now, coming from the TV background and writing scripts, when you're writing Darkwing, do you have like your little Jim Cummings voice in the back of your head going, or
yeah,
did you
yeah, 1000%.
Like,
Yeah, no, I mean, I love writing characters that I love. I mean, it's such a privilege, and in some ways, it's also like a little easier at times than doing something original, because I talk a lot about you mentioned the Black Panther versus Deadpool series up top, and I was really excited to do that because I already knew going in, what does it sound like when you put Black Panther and Deadpool in a room together? Like what happens if you put, a bag of money on the table? What happens if you put a gun on the table? Like, I know what those characters would do. And then the exercise, the fun of it becomes like surprising myself, surprising the audience, like knowing when to subvert our familiarity with the characters. So with Darkwing and Launchpad, they come from animation. So I literally hear their voice in my head when I'm writing this, because I've just, I've internalized so much of it over the years. I did a Rick and Morty comic last year, where the vocal patterns, the rhythm of the way that they talk, apparently I've just absorbed enough of it that it was not hard for me. I mean, assuming I was successful, it was not hard for me to write down on the page how their voices sound in my head. I also love homework. I do a lot of research whenever I get a new gig. I do like a colossal amount of research.
You brought up Launchpad, and one thing that a lot of folks I want to make sure that they're very aware is Launchpad and DuckTales and Launchpad and Darkwing were technically the same but different. Where were you having difficulties differentiating between Darkwing Launchpad and Mr. McDee's Launchpad? Or did you write them as the same? Because I've always seen them kind of the same, but when he was in Darkwing, he had a little more bravado. He was, the good trusted sidekick. When he was with Mr. McDuck, he was going, huh? Anyone you can walk away from.
Right, right. I mean, they're not like wildly different from each other, but I agree that I agree that there's a distinction for sure. I'm writing Darkwing Duck, so it's the launchpad from Darkwing Duck. I mean, that's even though like I loved DuckTales growing up, like DuckTales was very much like my entry into Darkwing Duck. Like, here's the funny duck show. Here's a funny duck show that's also like an action superhero cartoon. Here's another wave of action superhero cartoons. And now I love Batman the Animated Series. Now I love X-Men the Animated Series. Here's the Tick. It's comedy again. We're coming back around. And now here's Venture Brothers. You just do this indefinitely. This is just my life, right? Like, I'm a guy with glasses and, Mega Man action figures on the shelf behind me. So
no shade.
Yeah, exactly. They really did just like clear a path for me to do this indefinitely, and now to do it professionally and get to show my own kid.
Now, you mentioned earlier the 2017 DuckTales series. Have you drawn any inspiration from that? Now, I know that they took a very wildly different approach to Darkwing, and especially bringing Jim back and turning him into the Negaduck version, of which we never got any resolution because we're doing this a backdoor pilot, and last thing we heard was 2020. Are you taking any ideas from that and maybe incorporating it or just nodding to it? Even the video game, like throw it up on a TV somewhere.
Well, I love the idea of incorporating the video game, and I definitely have. I don't want to spoil anything. I have stuff coming that is like video game-y. The short answer is I'm inspired by it in as far as like this is of extremely high quality. I love the new DuckTales show, newer DuckTales show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry that it's not around anymore, or that version of.
I'm 100% with you.
That version of Darkwing, didn't live to terrorize the night again, but not really, because I am just I'm 41. I grew up watching the old show. I think that more people have probably seen the old show than the Darkwing episode of the more recent DuckTales. So I mean, I love it, but I'm not like hurting for material, I guess is what I would say. There's the original stuff is like so rich, and there's so much of it that it's already such a big sandbox to play in.
Now, since Darkwing, is obviously, and you mentioned it, is based on a lot of old pulp comics, and you've done a lot of comedy writing. How has that been for you to try to incorporate comedy that, transcends that, maybe, the 41-year-old, the 40-something of us is going to get, but our, 6-year-old niece, nephew, or kid is not going to get?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that, I mean, again, not to be a broken record, but the show really is like, the North Star on all of that stuff. Because the show has jokes in it that I'm not sure you could do on television now. The episode where they go to Goonie Golf opens with Gosselin is playing miniature golf inside because Drake is reluctant to take her to the miniature golf course. And I think he's napping on the couch, and she's about to hit a golf ball off his puckered beak like a T. And he wakes up and he says something to the effect of, Gosselin, have I ever told you the story about the little girl and the golf club and the firing squad? And that's like, what is that, like 1991? Or that's a little while ago. So like that gives me a lot of freedom to do, jokes that I think everybody in the family is gonna find funny. I mean, that's stuff like that is a hit at our house. The Pixar movies where everybody's kind of laughing at the same jokes. SpongeBob is something where everybody's laughing at the same jokes, and I tend to prefer that to something like Shrek, where there appear to be like kid jokes down here and grown-up jokes down here, and you just assume that the kids aren't going to get the grown-up jokes at all.
Yeah,
I think I prefer the sort of holistic family comedy, and I've written children's books as well, like the sort of holistic, everything is of a piece comedy writing where the parents and the kids are both enjoying the same thing together. Like that's the connection. that I'm aiming for. Not like a winky thing where it's like, oh, it's so funny that my kid doesn't get this reference,
Mhm.
as much as like we are all on the same page here. We are enjoying this together.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. Especially too, trying to translate comedy, especially with the differing audiences. But that's one thing about with Darkwing. I think you can kind of teeter the line too, especially it was a little, I don't want to say it was edgier because it really wasn't in the 90s, but like in comparison, what was lined up in that Disney block. Like I say, I always just remember that animation block. Like I say, it stood out for being a little more serious than the others on there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would agree. I would even say, if you don't mind, that out of all the Disney afternoon block, for me, the gold standard, believe it or not, for action was Tailspin.
Really?
Yeah, because you had all that high flying and cloud kicker and Don Carnage, and you had to deal with all. Dude, I'm not kidding. Like I know my stuff like nobody's business. True story. And sometimes you had Fat Cat, who was a little more sinister. I always saw Darkwing as a character that was again lighthearted and with all the camp, but trying to be overly dangerous and serious. But because he was such a good person at heart, you knew that at the end of the day, the good guys are going to win. And if it happened to be a two-parter, it wasn't, the stakes weren't as high as say, Batman is on a thing and the Joker's got a big, huge, saw blade. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
and that was the other thing, you go back into a rewatch. Sorry, I'm like totally stealing your thunder here. But it even came to the action itself. Darkwing always had like a Deus Ex Machina, like, oh, hey, I missed my shot, but it bounced off this and dinged off that. And, hey, there was no real punches thrown in Darkwing.
No. Well, yeah, I don't think there was really any in those Disney shows.
Exactly. So you had to work around it. So, that's where I think the Tailspin had the higher risk involved. But what do you think?
I mean, I think that you're probably right. I haven't seen Tailspin as recently, but yeah, it really felt like programming. It felt like
Mhm.
every show was sort of intended to hit a different sort of level or demographic. The word I always use with Darkwing is not edgy, but sophisticated.
Mhm.
That
Right.
to my recollection, I think the two-part pilot aired in prime time,
Yes,
which
it did.
is something that cartoons at that time, the X-Men as well, the Night of the Sentinels aired in prime time.
Batman
Something
series.
Batman.
It did, yeah, I remember
Yep.
that.
So when they knew that they had something special, they made it an event, and I watched it, live, which is the only way you could at that time.
Yeah.
And Gosalyn's, she's really orphaned, like her grandfather, really dies, is implied to have, died a death. And there's this kind of complicated spy plot, involving her being in real peril. And just all of this pathos and tenderness, as Darkwing learns that he's going to be a father to this girl, in addition to just the humor obviously being worthy of adults sitting down for it. I think that the full narrative, the whole piece that they made was something that told adults, hey, maybe you already are on board because Disney is like a mark of quality, that doesn't really exist on Saturday morning TV at this time. But this is airing in prime time. You might enjoy this as well. We're swinging for the fences on this one.
No, definitely. I gotta get to some questions in the chat here. So Mickey threw this up. When are we getting the Gizmo Duck series? He's calling dibs on it.
That's a question for my editor. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like a Gizmo Duck, like Gizmo Duck's name on the cover. I don't know, probably soon. Let's see how Darkwing Duck sells.
I
Yeah.
just don't want to be the letterer to have to do blabbering blatherskite.
Yeah, I could understand that.
Thank you.
No, and Kat threw in there, what are the odds of Scrooge McDuck showing up at some point?
That is a potential spoiler, but definitely not for a long time, let's say, because there's a lot of characters in the Darkwing universe that I get to spotlight first, and I'm selfish that way.
Like Mr. and Mrs. Waddlemeyer?
Not yet. I was briefly confusing them with the Muddlefoots who show up immediately.
I almost got him. Almost.
No, I did my research.
Now, if you could do any crossover with Darkwing with any media property, who would it be and why? Like if you had fair game on anybody.
That's right. I think I answered this the other day and I forgot what I said. So it's going to be a
good.
brand new, thought. I was really impressed and inspired by Powerpuff Girls and Thundercats. That crossover from Dynamite that's happening. So, once you've got that, I think all bets are off. I'm going to see if I can. Yes. Okay. So I will fully contrast my childhood cartoon obsessions and say Darkwing Duck and the Muppet Babies. That Darkwing Duck is for whatever reason, in addition to Goslin, now briefly responsible for babysitting all of the Muppet babies, and they all have to. I get to come up with all of their superhero personas because that was the other show. When I was too little for Darkwing Duck, that was the show I was obsessed with putting on VHS tapes.
Dude, that was the trifecta. Spielberg. I mean, let's be honest. Like, can you imagine? I mean, Kermit dressed up as Indiana Jones and Wonder Woman. Oh man, I can only.
Well, that whole era was just. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you think about the classic cartoons that still hold up to this day.
Now, I will say a good duck actually to put him up against or put him teamed up with Duck Dodgers.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
That's a real two magnets that are like charged the same way, like two like egotistical blowhard like duck heroes. That's great.
Yeah.
What about you, Ken?
I mean, obviously it's kind of wide open. I mean, but I like seeing the kind of like really crazy ones, like when we had Archie and the Punisher team up. Like I would see something like that. Like for some reason, I just want to see Darkwing Duck and Wolverine. I don't know why. I just think that would be something. Just somebody that's like all time brooding, and then you have like Darkwing who you don't really know what he's going to react to this.
Yeah, that'd be a good globe-trotting one. Like they could go to like Madripoor and stuff.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
Darkwing in the question. Thank you. Good night.
Yeah,
they're weirdly similar. Similar.
I just need a one shot of that.
That's it. I mean, we've had Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd. Why not? Or no, Batman, Elmer Fudd. Why not?
Yeah. Actually, as I say, the chat is chiming in. I know Matt from Hops Geeks News is all about this. And Kat actually threw in another question for Powerpuffs. When you were working on the Powerpuffs holiday comic, what was the story behind it? If we can segue to that.
The idea was to do like the hardest thing that I've ever done. It doesn't show. If you read it, I think it's very, it's very breezy, but the writing of it was actually like pretty difficult. I got it in my head that I was going to do 3, because you never, you don't usually get to see like long Powerpuff Girls stories. The Powerpuff stories are pretty tight, and they're usually together. I mean, there's definitely like Blossom gets a crush on or Buttercup gets a crush on the guy from the Gangrene gang, or him is manipulating Bubbles, talking through the octopus. Like they break off, but for the most part they're together. So I wanted to do 3 solo stories, like air quotes, like solo stories, where they decide that they need to buy a Christmas gift for Professor Utonium. So they all split up to go find the perfect present, and then they each have their own holiday special of equal page counts that all have a cliffhanger, and then all get resumed in the same order, and then all come together at the end to meet Santa Claus, of course. So yeah, it's the first, with one shots. I think that if there's not necessarily like an expectation to play with the format or to do a stunt or something, but with both of the holiday specials that I did last year, because I also did a Kitty Pryde Hanukkah story where it was 10 pages, and it was prologue, epilogue, and then the 8 pages in the middle were each a different night of Hanukkah. I think that when I'm doing something self-contained, I sort of like instinctively recognize that there's a opportunity to get a little weird, or to get a little showy, or to try something a little more ambitious. So the story of the Powerpuff Girls special was just like me making a lot of work for myself.
The big thing is whenever you write a Powerpuff Girls thing, the one thing you always have to make sure that it's hardcore.
It was very hardcore. It was very hardcore.
And I'm sure Darkwing Duck is going to be along those same lines. I know we're going to be running out of time here soon, but is there a final selling point if anybody has been listening to this interview yet and they're not already planning on running down to the LCS to get this pre-ordered on Monday, or by Monday, I should say? What is the selling point? Why should everybody be running down to the shops and making sure they got at least a couple copies of this?
Here's what I'll say. I haven't said this like on a podcast or a live stream yet. Start watching it on Disney Plus right now. Like as soon as you're done watching or listening to this, go put it on Disney Plus and just like bring yourself back there. Like start soaking up the vibe. And if you're feeling it and you want more of this, or you want a version of it that you could give your child in the backseat of a car that isn't an iPad, then we're ready for you. You're gonna like this.
Absolutely. Because I think that anybody that's going to pick this up, like I say, if you grew up watching the Disney cartoons in that primetime era, like I'm excited to check this out. And I know that for new readers to get into this, and they're hearing a lot about this because they're seeing all the books that are coming out from Dynamite, they're really rekindling that fire. I think Darkwing Duck is going to be a big smash for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Daniel,
I'm sorry. Shout out to Brandon Stein. Shout out to the art team. I didn't even mention them. They're crushing it. Look at the covers. This is Tad Stones, the creator of Darkwing Duck, who I can't believe we got to do variant covers for us. And Ted Brandt and Rose Stein do covers and interiors, and they're incredible. Huge fan of those people. Can't believe I get to work with them.
That is one amazing rogues gallery in the background.
Yeah.
Yep. That's these are all variants. The roller coaster one in the middle. Those are the A cover artists, the interior artists. So yeah, if you like these models, this is what the comic is going to look like.
Yeah, the Mark Bagley one here on the far right. That is one of my
Mark Bagley.
Yeah.
Insane.
When I saw it, I was like, wait, is that the Mark Bagley? Like,
yeah.
Spider-Man Mark Bagley. Like,
Mark Bagley from being Mark Bagley. That's him.
Yeah. Like
also known as Mark Bagley.
Yes. Yes. I marked, like I say, that is my Spider-Man.
Right. It sounds like my own Gosselin just got home from swimming lessons. So
yeah. Well, we'll definitely be wrapping this up. But I mean, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on the show. We definitely have to talk to you after a few of these issues come out and get a recap of where things are standing with Darkwing Duck.
I would love that. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Absolutely. And on behalf of Tom and myself, we're going to end this a little different than we normally do because I'll give the outro, but there is a special code that we're going to be throwing up. You've been seeing the QR code come up the entire night. Right now with what's going on in our thoughts, positive energy is going out to everybody dealing with the California wildfires. We have the QR code in the liner note, and we've had it on the screen all night here. We're going to end with a bigger one, so you can click and donate to the LA Regional Food Bank. And tomorrow on nerdinitiative.com, all the reviews that are coming out, at least 35 of them, are going to have links to the American Red Cross and the LA Regional Food Bank to go help and support. So if you can donate, please do. At the very least, share. We talk about superheroes being here. Right now, people need heroes, and this is a perfect way to do it. So please support as much as you can, and at least get the word out at the very least. So that said, when you're at the comic shops and you have a great issue in your hand on February 12th, such as Darkwing Duck #1, and you see somebody struggling to find a copy, hand yours off to them. Tell them to turn a page. We'll see you next week.
Let's get dangerous. I'm out.
It's such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know. 'Cause anyone who's worth a damn be worth way more than a picture could ever show. You could find the right light, find the right angle, and never find your soul. And it can feel like a losing battle, and this plot is full of holes. This modern way of finding love just makes me feel so alone. And I can't be the only one sick of staring at my phone. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. I'm fabled. Everyone has just one true love. All I know is you're across this table, and you're all I'm thinking of. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me, we don't have to float alone on the open sea. Talk to me. Talk to me. It's such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know. Whoa.